2013, I saw the first ever trailer for The Witcher 3, and it blew my mind. 4 years after its fateful release, and there are still 20 to 30,000 people out there playing The Witcher 3 every single day. This single-player only role-playing gem has been sitting roughly between the 15th and 25th most played game on Steam since it came out. That is an achievement, especially when you see next to zero major dips in player counts. Have players been playing the game for years on end, or is The Witcher 3 still seeing a constant flow of new sales? The Witcher 3 tears down the AAA assumption that a game can't stand on its own. It does this, ironically, by focusing on everything publishers once believed to be suicide: tremendous technical cost, no multiplayer, no DRM, no ongoing live service, all during an age that many people believe a single-player game just cannot justify the investment. Obviously, that's wrong. If the quality is there, a game can capture the hearts of gamers anywhere and achieve financial success at the same time, and The Witcher 3 proved that. Oddly enough, The Witcher 3 doesn't do anything extraordinarily different than other games. Other titles have detective vision, dialogue choices, card games, open worlds, large stories, and big tits and asses too. So The Witcher 3 didn't have a leg up just because it was truly something new. It ascended into greatness because it simply does it better than everyone else. At the end of 3 years, this iconic franchise had sold over 33 million copies, and The Witcher 3 was responsible for most of it, generating 1.4 billion zloty or 365 million US. This was 26 times the revenue of The Witcher 2, and it continued to sell extraordinarily well years after its release. Such a feat is rare to see, as the majority of sales for new games tend to take a nosedive into the ground after the first few months, as players beat it and move on to other games. The Witcher 3 has truly stood the test of time. Going back to The Witcher 3 after 4 years, and I have to say, the game does truly feel like it did the first time around, and the authenticity to the world building draws you in immediately. White Orchard is majestic with its sherbet skies and high winds that make the trees ruffle to and fro. Skellige is a chilling beauty, and the swamps of Crookback Bog, they stink of decrepit things lurking in sullen places others would not go. What makes this world stand out among other games is that it doesn't feel gamey at all. These interesting places are packed with proper landscaping and history, from coastal and mountain topography to royal gardens, underwater worlds, and deep down into the game's various cave systems. Not only do the game's areas look geologically and geographically convincing, but they flat out just make sense. Small towns, they're placed near water sources. High ground is where castles are built. Herbs suited for aquatic life grow near water, while ferns and other plants that need shade grow underneath trees. Bright flowers blossom in open areas that get full sunlight, and wheat fields are placed near cities as a major food source. In Toussaint, orchards of fruit trees, vineyards, and agricultural farmlands, they flood the rolling hills in such a pleasing and realistic way. These aren't just crude doodads. The game feels alive. No detail was forgotten. It shows that The Witcher 3 was designed far beyond aesthetics. Stop and think about how they could have taken the easier route of just randomly dropping in art assets to save time. The strange and interesting people that inhabit this unique land bring it to life. Listening to the stories of travelers, citizens, and the damned too is really engaging still because the dialogue has a fantastic charm to it. These aren't just nameless faces. Great writing and voice acting age like a fine wine. The cast of characters feel like real people, from Ciri to Kira to the Baron and company. Never has a game delivered on such an awesome suite of characters. Yeah, they shoot fireballs and jump through time and space, but they're still relatable, and that's what makes the game stand out. From tales of regret and betrayal, self-loathing, vengeance, and bitter contempt, to honor, pity, and self-acceptance, the gambit is run. We see it all in The Witcher 3, and despite the fantasy, it's an endearing tale that still feels grounded. It's at times crass and rough around the edges, but it's brought to life with such painstaking detail and imagination that its small problems are pretty easy to overlook. Things like Geralt's awkward movement, the clunky horse control, candle placements, the occasional buggy texture, trying to jump on a boat. They are but trivial when the game is otherwise so good. The quality of it is simply astounding, even though the game had a graphical downgrade. If there was ever a hard knock against The Witcher 3, this would be it. The E3 trailer simply looks better than the release game, and while everything you're about to see is subject to change is a pretty valid counter, it still wasn't announced prior to the game coming out, and they should have, though granted, it still looks fantastic. The cool thing about The Witcher 3 is that every person will experience it just a little bit differently, given the twists and turns of the narrative as players encounter dozens of choices of varying magnitude. It's a twisting network of many stories, conflicts, and surprises, piled up on a rich political war meta-narrative. Somehow, through all the nether, it comes together in the end. without being overly confusing, and without stretching itself too thin? Do you pity the Baron and his self-loathing prophecies, or bring down the Iron Fist and make him pay for his vile actions? How do you want Family Matters, one of the game's more cornerstone quests, to conclude? Will you stay loyal to Yennefer? And how will you treat those in need? Selflessly, or demanding gold coins for your time, even if it's all this old lady has? You decide how the game plays out, from Kira to the Whispering Spirits, Horsung Jr. to the Mages of Novigrad, Ciri, and countless more. The game is chock full of massive quests, sprawling in fact, with intertwined narratives and huge choices forced onto the player. Each one revolves around one of the many strong and awesome characters, and the outcomes pulsate differently throughout other elements in the game depending on your selection. From simply helping out someone in need on the road, saving a family member, or killing a wraith that has poisoned a water well with a curse. Even the small choices come bundled with quality side missions that feel important. There's no throwaway content. Each cutscene was designed by hand with multiple layers of dialogue and optional content, and all of them are done with great framing and camera work, which brings the game to life in a cinematic way that doesn't scream, "This is a video game." And you'll want to do all that side content because the fiscal system in The Witcher 3 was very well thought out. Whereas many games require you to grind for cash, there's really no way to grind for gold or cheat the system in The Witcher 3. The game doesn't even give you that much, and honestly you don't even need it. Most gold is simply spent on repairs, while most gear, herbs, and materials are crafted or found in the world. You're not a slave to any grind in The Witcher 3. Instead, you adventure out without worry, which allows you to focus on enjoying the game and finding its many secrets. You can spend all day scouring the nooks and crannies of The Witcher 3, stumbling onto the unexpected. Perhaps it's a quest, or a rare item, or a ghost ship in the middle of the ocean, or perhaps a giant whale traveling at sea. These things are really cool to stumble upon. Or maybe it's a cave with some sort of treasure, or a town off the beaten path where an important character from a past Witcher game waits to be discovered. Unlike many RPGs, including Skyrim at times, The Witcher 3 usually rewards your adventuring curiosity. Very rarely will you hike your ass up a mountain in a faraway place and find absolutely nothing. And this is but scratching the surface of a game you could easily spend 250 hours in. The beauty is you won't find half of this stuff your first playthrough. Thus, when you finish the game, it begs you to continue exploring, which is often rewarding in itself. Thus, 4 years later, the game is still absolutely playable and a complete joy. The best part is you don't even have to play the first 2 games to enjoy The Witcher 3. It provides a great deal of backstory and optional lore content like books, optional conversation, and notes to bring players up to speed. Yet, like a good sequel, it still pays homage to its roots, as demonstrated by the plethora of references to the first game in Kaer Morhen. And even if you take a break from the game, fully voice-acted loading screens, they fill you in. This is a feature I'd love to see every RPG have. Like a good book or movie, The Witcher 3 is a series of ups and downs, moments of triumph and despair. Champions fall while others rise, never lingering on one note too long and climaxing at the perfect time. It's satisfying all the way through. And with 36 endings based on how you play the game, there's something for everyone. Literally, the end of the game is based off how you act within the game. And then, to think after the credits roll down, you still have 2 gigantic-sized, fantastic expansion packs to get through. Arguably some of the best Witcher content ever produced. Unlike many games today, the total Witcher 3 package is incredibly fair and generous. A substantial single-player experience with excellent post-release content that obviously was never ripped from the base game. It's the way DLC should be done. In 2019, 4 years later, The Witcher 3 still stands up next to the best open-world RPGs out there. In fact, it's still the #1 most played adventure or RPG game on Steam, next to Monster Hunter World. Not many games, ever, after this long, can say that. The only hot ticket item debated within The Witcher 3 could be the combat system, which has been criticized by many for being a little bit too simple and easy. For those who played the original Witcher, which had a completely different combat system, most would say more technical. I can definitely understand that. But for newcomers to the franchise, I say increase the difficulty. It won't change the system, but it will make the game more challenging, and you might have to fall back on some of the game's more underutilized systems, such as potions. But exploring the alchemy system will give you a brand new appreciation for the intricate detail that was put behind it. The hard modes of The Witcher 3 are actually the best way to play this game. They force you to embrace the role-playing aspects that many ignore. Things like eating the right foods and drink, crafting the right bombs, traps and potions, embracing the versatility of the sign system, and manipulating the day and night cycle. This is not a perfect game here. The Witcher 3 has many small flaws, like the camera being annoying during combat sometimes, or the reuse of so many NPC faces. Yes, it's pretty odd to see the same NPC with another voice, but they never impede on the experience too much. That's because the immersion factor is so powerful that you'll quickly forget about these misgivings. Characters that feel real, and interactions that are meaningful, often funny, charming, sad, or thought-provoking, sometimes all at the same time. Nothing is black and white, everything has a catch. It makes the choice element of the game meaningful because it feels personal, especially when the journey ends. It's simply one of the best worlds ever created for a video game. The Witcher 3 is more than a game. It's an experience, and you should not miss it, even 4 years later.